James DeGale reaches out for redemption on Saturday night through the eye of a desert storm. Britain's former Olympic gold medalist makes the attempt to regain his world title against a turbulent backdrop. It is not the high winds forecast to howl through Sin City which are whipping up the sands of disturbance. This mecca of gambling is buffeted by the fallout from the cancellation of its jackpot fight in the wake of failed drugs tests by Canelo Alvarez, its star boxing attraction. Mexico's fallen idol has pulled out of his mega rematch with Gennady Golovkin next month in advance of the April 18 hearing into two positive findings for a banned performance-enhancing substance. Guilty as charged? That has left Las Vegas picking up the debris of thousands of refunds for high-cost tickets at the T-Mobile Arena and countless canceled hotel rooms and airline tickets. All in addition to the loss of a $100 million casino drop on Mexico's Cinco de Mayo holiday weekend. DeGale goes into his rematch against Caleb Truax, the unheralded American who snaffled his IBF super middleweight belt in London, conscious of the vortex into which he has flown. DeGale welcomes the stand which the Nevada State Athletic Commission appears to be taking with regard to Canelo the cash cow, pleading that he inadvertently consumed contaminated meat in his homeland. DeGale suspects he has found himself in the ring against opponents with potentially lethal rocket-fueled power and says, "It is good for boxing if authorities crack down on doping. Ours is a dangerous sport and the risk of serious injury or even death is raised by drugs, cheats, and the problem is rife. Believe me, a lot of fighters are using. There have been times when I felt there was something up. It was not exactly a surprise to me when Lucian Butte failed a test in the fight after I beat him in Canada. A lot of these drugs boost stamina and for an older fighter he had an unbelievable engine. And I think there's been others." Butte was caught after fighting Badu Jack. The decision, a majority draw, was revised to a disqualification and Butte was suspended for 6 months. That is the reduction from a 1-year ban for which Canelo is hoping. If that was backdated to the time of his February tests, the Megabucks fight with Golovkin could be rescheduled for the next Mexican holiday, Independence Day, on September 15. DeGale does not believe that would be punishment enough for Alvarez, but it is an ancillary issue raised in the shadows of the drugs violations, which is a specific concern for a man known as Chunky. Behind the scenes of the first Alvarez-Golovkin fight last September, the camp of the Kazakh KO merchant were outraged by Canelo's hand wrapping. This involved the application of a soaking wet strip of material between the layers of dry cloths. This method dries into a packing so solid that some liken it to the old wives' tale of horseshoes being slipped into gloves. The Nevada Commission rejected the Golovkin protests, insisting that such wrappings come within their laws. This is not the case with many of the world's boxing federations, but Nevada is not alone in the U.S. Barry McGuigan raised strenuous objections on behalf of Carl Frampton in 2015 when Alejandro Gonzalez did the same before a fight in El Paso. The Texas Commission declared the wrapping legal and Frampton suffered 2 surprise knockdowns in the first round before switching to a less open attacking style and recovering to win. An observer from each camp has to be permitted to the opponent's dressing room to observe hand wrapping. When told on arrival here about the Canelo controversy, DeGale said, "I don't know if Truax does this, but we will be watching closely." His longtime trainer Jim McDonnell added, "This is a highly dangerous practice and we will exercise the right to oversee the wrapping. But if it does take place, Team Chunky are unlikely to be able to stop it happening." A fight is rarely just a fight in the prize ring these days, and if Truax does include the wet strip, DeGale will have to clench his jaw and bite the bullet. He knows he cannot turn up the chance of becoming a 2-time world champion, any more than he can afford to lose to Truax a second time. Chunky has sworn to hang up the gloves unless he wins with a dominant performance. He says, "The way I lost my title to Caleb was horrendous, shocking. I could not go on if I embarrassed myself like that again." Truax gave DeGale a wry look when he heard that. This is a decent, modest, older man who never gave up on his dream of becoming a world champion. He trains in a gym of such leaky structure in Osseo, Minnesota that there are buckets positioned next to every corner of the ring. So nominal were his purses on his long journey to meet DeGale at London's Copper Box that he had to pay to make his local TV and radio appearances. He earns more this evening than he has been paid in his entire career. Truax is an honest Joe with a big heart, but a one-dimensional trier should never have been good enough to unseat a champion of DeGale's talent. Chunky says, "People were coming up to me in the street and asking what the hell was wrong with me that night. The answer was part physical. It was too soon after my shoulder operation. Part psychological, I was complacent and looked past him. I promise it will never happen again. Not here, please, James." Even though this is not exactly the high-profile Las Vegas of which he dreamed. No T-Mobile Arena. No top of the bill. No big crowd. DeGale tops the undercard below a mouth-watering world super welterweight title unification fight between the brilliant Cuban veteran Erislandy Lara and precocious undefeated American Jarrett Hurd. Tickets are still available at the 5,000-seat arena. With so many bigger fights awaiting DeGale should he win, the choice of venue is ironic for our man caught at the moment between a rock and a hard place. Here at the Hard Rock Hotel, expect Chunky to find a way to chisel his way out with a unanimous decision. Truax v DeGale will be televised live on Box Nation late on Saturday night.